I often feel that a lot of average players are trying to win brilliancy prizes in their games. At the highest level, the most important thing for the strong player is to win the game, and he or she doesn't care how they do it as long as they get to the win. The following game is not going to win a brilliancy prize by any stretch of the imagination, but it is an excellent example of high-class play and putting pieces on good squares. It's a game from the Croatian Team Championship, played in October 2011. Again, a game from the highest level of world chess, between Viktor Bologan and Arkady Naidic. And it features a variation which has become incredibly popular at the highest level. Not the most interesting variation ever seen, but it's the Berlin defence to the Ruy Lopez. Made famous by Kramnik's use of it in the 2000 World Championship match against Kasparov, where Kasparov failed to win a single game throughout the entire match. And one of the main centre points of that match was his inability as white to breach black's defences in this Berlin variation. So Kramnik forced a re-evaluation of the type of positions that arise from this line. Basically, this is the main line that the two players are following, and we quickly get a queenless middle game. Now let's try and sum up what's going on here. Black's king's in the middle, but with the queens off the board, that doesn't seem too significant. You know, it's hardly likely that white is going to be able to mount a successful attack against the black king. Black's got the bishop pair, but on the other hand, white's got the better pawn structure, and there is some prospect of an attack here. Moreover, it's going to take black quite a long time to get to a position of full coordination. So as black here, I think you've got to be extremely patient, and you've got to look to the long term. From white's perspective, white must respect black's bishop pair and try to make use of the main feature of the position eventually, which is the kingside pawn majority. Now, this is not at all easy to do in this position, but it is possible to do it. And in this game, Bologan gives us an excellent example of how to actually utilise his trumps. He looks around the position and he tries to make use of all the good points about it. So knight c3 is normal, and now black plays h6. Whether that move is possible or not, or useful to black or not, I don't know, but they do play it quite often. Perhaps black's idea here is to play bishop e6 at some point without allowing white the possibility of playing knight g5. White goes h3, getting ready for the advance of his pawns. I mean, I don't think that's a move which is earth-shattering, but it does at least give white the possibility of g4 at some point. Bishop d7 was played by Naidic. Knight e7 has also been played, and now white goes b3. c5 by black, rook d1 putting black in a pin, and then Bologan brings his knight into d5. And he's saying to black, well, if you want to get rid of that knight, you've got to make concessions. Black plays a5, hoping to play a4, perhaps, and now white goes a4. And I quite like white's position here. I mean, he's blocked the queen side to a degree, he's closed down the black bishops, and he's getting ready slowly for the eventual advance of his majority. Knight e7. Black challenges the knight, and white plays c4. If black wants to take that knight, then white will get a really strong pair of central pawns. Naidic plays bishop f5, clearly with the idea of bishop c2, so white stops that move. And now black plays rook a6. Very good move, I think, activating the rook to the maximum possible extent. Knight e3 attacking the bishop, bishop e4, knight d2, and now bishop h7. And the real question is that bishop well placed on h7 or not? Now, the way Bologan handles this position is extremely instructive over the next 10 moves or so. He manages to prove that the bishop on h7 is not very well placed. This is an extremely skilled game by white, and it's certainly worth seeing. Now, f4 is a step in the right direction. White wants to play g4 and f5 and block that bishop out of the game, after which he can then operate in other areas of the board with presumably an extra piece. Knight c6, pawn up to g4. Very courageous play by white. Now, he could try knight f3, then comes bishop e4, king f2. Makes it very easy for black to get rid of that problem light square bishop and also after g5, I think there is significant counterplay for black. So g4, white's playing for high stakes. Knight b4 attacking the rook. Rook a1, and now I think black misses his chance. He goes h5, but I think actually knight d3 was probably a better move, going for counterplay. And the point of it is that after f5, we go knight takes e5. Knight e4, rook b6, something like this, rook a3, check, and then knight d4, and gain counterplay by these means. h5 runs into white's idea, f5, and now it's a different ball game entirely. Black takes on g4 and plays f6, and e takes f6 was played. Now, a lot of players would be tempted by e6. Black is obviously intending to hit back with g6, maybe bishop a3, but then comes takes knight d3, knight f3, rook g8 check, and then rook d6. Black is gaining a lot of counterplay by these means. So e takes f6 was played, rook takes f6, knight e4, rook h6, bishop b2, and now the rook comes into h3. Well, it seems as though black is getting quite a bit of play on the king side here, but that bishop on h3 is still gumming up the works. White plays king f2, very calm. Bishop g8, is that bishop in the game? No, says Bologan. You can have your check on h2 if you want it, but I can easily defend myself with knight g2. And we see now that black is still hampered by the fact that his bishop pair isn't really operating in this position. Rook 8 to h3. If bishop h7, attacking the knight, we go takes on g7, bishop takes, rook g8, knight f6, rook takes g7, and now the excellent move rook h1. Takes, takes. White is much better in this position. Pass pawn, bishop is in trouble, rook h8 will follow shortly. Good position for white. So rook 8 h3, as in the game. Bishop e5, very nice centralisation. Bishop h7, a rather desperate move. We take the rook, he takes on e4, and now the smoke clears and white emerges material ahead. Black suffered in this middle game because of his poorly placed pieces. So they now followed a small technical phase where white realised his advantage. The extra exchange means something once you get your pieces on open files. Knight c2 was the last move of the game, and I presume black lost on time in this position. So, the struggle in this queenless middle game is really heavy going, perhaps not suitable for the average player from either side of the board. But that was certainly an interesting example of how one poorly placed piece can affect the whole position.